So, has nothing to do with, in fact, reinforcement learning, or much to do even about a little tiny bit to do about computer science. Okay, two main topics I want to talk about: optimizing your financial life, and then sort of your engineering life. All right.
With Google Fi.
Another happy Google Fi user. Yes. So Fi, what is Fi? Fi is what's called financial independence. Okay, it's something that most people don't consider, but the idea is if your passive income, that is what you get by not working, right? Rents, royalties, dividends, stock appreciation, exceeds your monthly expenses, then you are financially independent. Okay? And this is commonly happens kind of, people think about, okay, when I retire when I'm 65, that's kind of when you need to be financially independent. You know, you can't your Social Security, your savings, whatever else. You get your monthly income and you're not working, and so therefore better support your expenses. Okay? It's also called FU money. So, yeah. And the idea is it does provide a lot of options, right? In the sense of you just can't stand your boss, your manager, and he's just really bugging you. It's like, I don't have to work here if I don't want to. You know, I could leave. You can ask for things that you might otherwise not. You know, I would like to work 3/4 time and also work remotely. You know, and if they say no, well, then you can leave if you want to, right? You could work part-time. I did that at Google. I moved down from 100% time to 60% time. So I was working 3 days a week. So Monday through Friday, and then I would have my 4-day weekend. That was kind of nice. You can just do what you want. You can continue working because you love it, and that's great. You could work for like a small science and engineering private college. And as I said, you know, take a pay cut of 90%. Okay, so let me just provide some particulars about this. Like, let's say you have a stock portfolio. How much can you, so stocks, I don't know, 80% stocks, 20% bonds, how much can you actually withdraw a year? Okay, if you have $1 million, let's say. About 4% a year, kind of 3 to 4% a year. That's what studies have shown. Basically, you won't run out of your money over 30 years. Back tested over every 30-year period, you know, from 1900 on. So roughly, let's just use this 4%. So $1 million, you get $1 million. You could take $40,000 your first year, and then you could take $40,000 the next year, indexed for inflation. Okay, so you could up that $40,000 indexed for inflation, and you have a very low probability of actually running out, and actually a very high probability of ending up with more than $1 million at the end of, let's say, 30 years. Okay. Or another way to look at it is, if you have a particular annual income you need to multiply it by 25 to get a total number of assets. Does that make sense? All right. And by the way, the reason I talk about all this is because your tendency is going to be to, well, first off, you'll probably have high-paying jobs. It's just my guess, and that's where this does have to do with computer science, okay? And so your tendency is going to be to spend it all, or to spend a lot of it, or to ratchet up your lifestyle to basically match your income. And I'm saying by postponing, by delayed gratification, you can get some very nice benefits. Okay?
We'd be covering how to get from like $10 to $7
Yes, sure. So, becoming financially independent is independent of your income. Okay? Whether you're making $50,000 a year or $400,000 a year, all that matters is how much are you saving? What percentage are you saving? So, if you have your total income and you look at your savings, it's that ratio that matters. Okay? So, we have our assets. We multiply by our safe withdrawal rate. That gives us our investment income, and we need that to be bigger than our expenses, right? So what happens, let's say you have a 10% savings rate, okay? And you're making $100,000 a year. then your expenses are 90,000. So you need a year. So you need 90 times, what did they say, 25 amount of capital. So 2.25 million, right? We'll still get to how you could try and earn your 2.25 million. But what that means is basically save 10% and it's going to take you 39 years. There's some assumptions here, like what sort of a rate of return are you getting on your investment. Okay, so this is true whether you're earning $100,000 a year or $50,000 a year or $200,000 a year. If you're saving 10%, sort of by definition, you're spending the other 90%, right? And so it's going to take you 39 years to get enough capital to create that amount. Does that make sense? Questions? So if you increase your savings rate to 20%, two things happen. You're saving twice as much, which is a good thing, but you also need less because your expenses are now less. Your expenses are 80,000 instead of 90,000, so therefore you only need 2 million instead of 2.25 million. So you've got this effect on these both sides. Saving more, needing less. That takes less time, of course. So that cuts 10 years off your journey. And if you bump it up more, that reduces it. And actually, let's just look at this, 39 years. So 39 years, you guys are what? Give me a senior. You're a senior, you're 20? 21. All right, so 39 years from now, you're? 60. So that's right around kind of traditional retirement age. So save 10%, that's how long it'll take you. Or, sorry, there is another way to do it, and that is bump up your investment return, right? If you can get a lot more than 8%, then that's another way to skin the cat. Okay, but if you now go to 29 years, then it's only 50, which I was your age once. 50 seems like forever away, all right? I remember my first job out of college. So what was I? First real job, orientation. And they were like talking about retirement savings or something. Maybe it was 401k. I'm not sure. But I know I tuned out because this isn't relevant to me. You know, I'm 19 or 20 or whatever I was. I mean, this is for the old people or something. It wasn't for me, I just knew. And so I hope you don't do that. Okay? Because your future you will want you to make good choices now. So increasing your savings rate. Now you may say some of these, I mean, this is crazy. No one's saving 50% of their income. But surprisingly, some people definitely do that. And with that, it only takes you 15 years, right? So we decided you're 21 still? Yeah. Okay, so 36, you're done. All right?
I might get 3 years from there.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, though, it's only supposed to last for 30 years, right?
And you have to get the people to meet in a car.
Yeah. Yeah. So worst case, what happens is you have to, I mean, no one says you have to stop working, right? So if you keep working, but you have now all of a sudden tons of optionality, right? Because you don't have to be.
Just to clarify, this doesn't cover like debt, or like if your expenses plus your savings is more than your income.
If your expenses plus your savings are more than your income, so you're going into debt, let's say? Yeah, so that would, like, instead of having your capital increasing, it is decreasing, basically. Yeah, don't do that. Okay, so tools. Negotiate your job offer. How many of you have jobs you're going to after you graduate? All right, so just like close your eyes, close your ears. It's too late.
Unless you get fired.
It'll be relevant for your next job, all right? And I must say, this is easier said than done. And there are reasons why sports players use agents, right? And folks in the entertainment industry use agents because it's much easier for someone else to negotiate for you than for you. But it doesn't work in our industry. It would be considered very odd to say, you know what? Thank you for the offer. Let me turn you over to my agent, who is going to deal with the negotiation from here on out. Yeah. So you can negotiate on your annual salary. You can negotiate on your signing bonus. Which would you prefer to have? $10,000 in signing bonus or an annual salary?
Salary.
Did I hear anyone say signing bonus? No, good. So annual salary, because it's like the gift that keeps on giving, right? Not only is it the gift that keeps on giving, it is your base that is affecting what's happening from here on out. Because raises are often sort of a percentage of what you've got. And although in California, employers can ask what you were making at your last job, in other states they can, and it's still kind of common, right? So that your new salary, when you go to a new position, is, well, how much you're making at your old salary, and we'll bump it up a little bit, okay? The company's job is to get you for as little as they can, right? And they have specialists in doing that, right? The folks in HR and so on who are negotiating with you, they do this day in and day out, and they are perhaps not explicitly compensated, but certainly rewarded in how little they give you. Yes.
How do you negotiate, like, your salary? Because I have no idea. I hear I should do it, but do I bump it up 10% and then see what they return offer? And then what if they take away my offer?
There are books on this, and that's what I'd recommend. And until last week, I had never heard of someone like removing an offer for asking for more. But my wife did have someone that she had recommended, and they said they withdrew the offer. Well, when they asked for it, and it wasn't even that much more, so it was crazy. In general, there's this sunk cost fallacy, right? Of you've put all this time into it, and so you don't want to lose the job. But so has the company. They've interviewed a lot of people to get to this stage where they're making the offer to you, and the hiring. The person in HR who's doing this negotiation, it's going to be bad if you walk away, right? So one thing you do, and I'll talk about it in a moment, is have multiple offers. That is your best negotiating position. I would really like to come work for you, Mr. Startup, but this other company is offering me, a much better package. They're offering me better salary, so you go back and try to get better salary here. Sorry, these guys are offering me this nice signing bonus, and so you're doing here, right? You want the maximum of everything, plus a little bit, right? And it's crazy, if you could have offers from, Google, Amazon, and Netflix, bidding war kind of thing can happen.
So
Nick.
certain companies don't want or suggest that you're not supposed to give out the their offer details. Do you suggest not following that then?
You're not going to give your letter to someone,
Okay.
right?
So you just have to prove.
There's no proof. Oh, no. There's no proof. Now, you could say, I suppose, oh, startup, I would like to work for you. I wish I had this offer from, this big company that is no, there's no proof. But if you got caught, that would look pretty bad.
Yeah.
And you could get a reputation, and that would be bad in the industry. So I wouldn't recommend lying. But yeah, you don't have to be saying the offers. You just, it's better in some way. Signing bonus, stock option grants are also very useful. Moving expenses like a signing bonus, right? So you want as much as you can in salary, and you want stuff in. Options are sort of, there's a different beast if you're talking about a startup versus you're talking about an established company, right? In an established company, you're pretty much talking about cash, right? If they're giving you stock options or stock units, right? They normally don't give you stock these days. They give you something that will be equivalent to stock. But it's really worth going and learning how to do this and spending some time role-playing with someone else, having these uncomfortable conversations. So HR says to you, well, what sort of a salary were you looking for? And the rule is, right, the first person to mention a number loses, okay? Because if you say X, HR may say, oh, thank goodness, they only want X. I was willing to do X plus, some amount. And so they'll say X, I'll see if I can swing that for you, right? They're not going to say, oh, yep, good, you got it. Because they don't want you to realize that, Anyway, so there are books.
Is it common for companies to not negotiate?
Not very common, no. Not very common.
Is that like ever used as a tactic to like a or an HR person say, oh, we don't negotiate to like try to get you to not?
Sure, they can do that. And your best bet here is, I really want to work for you, because you always want to say that. You do not, for some reason, want to look like you are a mercenary, going with the highest possible return for your talents. Instead, I really like this project, this movie, want me to work on or something, but my, whatever your reasons, right? Your reasons are you really can't afford to ignore this higher benefit in whatever it is. Maybe it's the same amount, but this job is in Pittsburgh and the cost of living is so much less there, right? Or whatever. You got all sorts of reasons you want. Okay. And I, by the way, am very poor at this. So as I said, I can. When I went to Google, I said yes, I'll take this job for this amount, and then they go through like hiring committee and executive committee and so on. Executive committee came back and said, we need to give more money. So the recruiter had come back and say, well, actually, you're going to get $10,000 a year more than you had agreed to, because obviously I ludicrously accepted what I should have. Yeah.
What's your stance on graduate school?
On graduate school?
On going to graduate school, being a student and getting that salary versus taking like a six-figure software job right off the bat, but having to live like in the bank.
It depends what you want. I mean, you have the purely financial calculation of how much more will I be worth after going to grad school versus what are my opportunity costs, right, of foregoing that money. But I don't think it's really a financial question. Because normally I think if it's a financial question, the answer would be it's probably not worth going to grad school. But also know the plan of, well, I will go work for a few years and then go to grad school does not work out very well for people. Because, among other things, people increase your lifestyle. So you go get your six-figure, job, and then you're enjoying living like that, and then all of a sudden you can't afford, to go back to school. So it's hard to do. It's much easier if you have not increased your lifestyle. So this is another good reason not to increase your lifestyle. So you can go back to grad school if you want, right? Actually, there's one reason why it could be good, and that is if your employer will pay for it, right? So if you can do this work, go to school at the same time. But that's kind of hard. The even harder one is I am finishing my dissertation while I am working. And that looks like that's a tough slog. So don't buy or lease a new car, right? Don't just go out and say, I now have my signing bonus. Or you don't even need a signing bonus, right? You can go into any car, they'll give you a loan because you got a nice job. But just don't do that. If you need a car, get yourself like a student type car, a used one that works but is not all that nice. And here's the idea. This is time. Let's see how we want to do this. I'm trying to figure out what the axes are. So all of a sudden, let me try this. This is enjoyment, and this is lifestyle increase. Okay? And I'm going to have to try and explain this for a moment. So hedonic adaptation basically says you get used pretty quickly to whatever enjoyment you have. So here's what happens. You have a lifestyle increase, right? So I'm just trying to figure out how these axes work because it doesn't quite make sense. So let's just ignore this for a moment, okay? We have an increase in lifestyle. We get ourselves a brand new car. Our enjoyment goes way up. And then you kind of get used to it, and it goes back down, okay? That's the adaptation. And the hedonic is like hedonism, right? Just, unless it's a Tesla, my understanding is that is about here, right? People just seem to really love it.
Unless Unless you got the display model and they forgot to put in some parts, in which case it drops back down.
Yeah, okay. So it's not going to drop down all the way necessarily, but it's actually pretty close, right? You talk to people and you interview them after they win a lottery a couple of years later, or after they become paralyzed a couple of years later, and like they end up about the same happiness. People get used to whatever they have. So you get this big bang of enjoyment. So you don't want to take your big bang of enjoyment with your new car and your 2-bedroom apartment all by yourself and your own Netflix subscription rather than, using your parents, and I don't know, 3 or 4 other things, right? Instead, maybe what you could do is first, we won't have this quite as much, you get your little junker car, right? But it's your car. You don't have a car now. And so you get some bump of enjoyment out of it. And then you go ahead and a little later on, I guess this is time actually. That's what my axis is, time. And then you go up and you get yourself, I don't know, what do you get? You get your Netflix subscription, right? And then a little later on, you get a nicer car. And then a little later on, you get a 2-bedroom apartment with a roommate, right? So it's not 1 bedroom you're sharing with someone like it was here. It's 2 bedrooms, you get your own bedroom. And so you've got more area under the curve of enjoyment by spreading it out. Okay? All right. And this definitely is a real thing. And it is true. You get used to whatever it is you end up with. And it's also true you get used to not having it. But there is definitely a time where it feels painful, and people don't like that. So that's why the going back to grad school is hard, for example. Let's continue to have roommates. That's one way to save a lot of money, right? What are your 3 biggest expenses? Housing. No. Housing.
Student loan debt.
I'm sorry about that. Number 2, come on. It's not food.
Transportation.
Yes, transportation. And number 3. How many of you got a paycheck?
Oh, taxes.
Thank you. Okay. Housing, utilities, taxes. Housing, transportation, taxes. So transportation, I am saying don't buy yourself a new car. Okay? Although I'm still trying to convince myself that somehow I deserve a Tesla, but maybe. Continue to have roommates is a good way to reduce your expenses for housing. Just do that a lot longer than all your other coworkers are doing, and you can save a ton of money. Okay? If you want to buy a house, if you think that's important to do, fine, buy a house. Get roommates. Have them pay your mortgage for you, right? Might as well. And do that all now, because it gets a lot harder. Like if you end up getting married, right? Very few spouses say, oh yeah, I'm good for having roommates, right? And so eventually you're going to get to this point where that's not going to be feasible anymore. Spend that early time saving all that money. Transportation as well, live near where you work is my recommendation. That's worth it. If you can walk or bike to work or something like that, don't live. That's good not only monetarily, but also like having a happier life, right? I live out in Redlands, so that's like a 40-minute drive when there's no traffic. So I'm now looking for places here. I think so. I think I probably should get something just in time for classes to be taught remotely so that I wouldn't have to come to campus anyway. As your income increases, do not increase your expenses by that amount, right? So if you are saving 30% of your income, right? You're doing great, saving 30% of your income in savings, and you get a raise, don't go 30% for that. Save 50% of that new raise, because you're not going to notice it, right? That's the nice thing about the raise. So you'll get this raise, you'll have more money in your pocket, but you can also increase your savings rate. Okay? Now, don't save all of it. You need to reward yourself. That makes a lot of sense. Questions so far? All right. Rule of 72. So just as a warning, you guys who were in neural networks, you know this, right? This was on the test, on the final exam. So rule of 72 is, how long does it take for your money to double? Okay, you have a certain amount of money, you invest it at a certain rate of return, and how long will it take to double? Okay, and there's a simple rule of 72, which says take the interest rate and divide that into 72, and that'll take you how many periods it needs to double. So if this is an annual interest rate, it's these many years to double. Okay, so if your parents say, gee, we bought a house, how many years ago? 30 years ago, for, I don't know, what did they pay 30 years ago? 100,000, I don't know where, okay? And they say to you, housing is a great investment because the house we bought for $100,000 is now worth 900,000, I mean 800,000. Pick a number. 900. Yeah, 800. All right? And now you come back to your parents and you say, yeah, I don't know if that was such a good investment because you only earned X on your return. So what percentage? How many doublings here? 3 doublings, right? So that means 1 doubling every 10 years. So therefore, what was their interest rate? Their effective interest rate that they got? 7.2%, right? 72 divided by 10 equals 7.2%. Okay? Which actually is not a bad return over 30 years. Does that make sense? So you can do stuff easily on a desert island, okay? If someone asks you this problem, you don't have to plug it into a financial calculator, and you don't have to go do exponents and logs and stuff like that. This just is a nice way to work, okay? It doesn't work for extreme interest values, so sub 1%, bigger than 20%, but it works in the normal kind of range of interest rates. Budgeting. So how many of you have done budgeting? All right, budgeting sounds like a drudgery, okay? But budgeting is really spending your money where you really want to, okay? YNAB, to my mind, is the best budgeting software. So I've used Quicken for a lot of years. Quicken is really good at figuring out where you did spend your money. Okay, like wow, I spent a lot of money on, what's the one that people always talk about, lattes, okay, or something else. YNAB actually is really good at budgeting and looking at how you're doing with respect to budgeting. Part of what it does, they have some kind of rules here. There are one that is really important is save for a rainy day. That is, if you have large but regular expenses, like let's say car insurance every 6 years or 6 months, okay? That is hard to budget monthly unless you establish what you might call a sinking fund or something like that, so that you put in the same amount each month, and then when the 6 months comes, you have the money there for it. Christmas gifts, right? It's not a surprise. Christmas rolls around every year, but do you really want to be using December's budget to pay for that? No. You know it's coming. Plan 1/12 of your Christmas gifts to be budgeted every year and just save that all up. Okay? Car expenses is another example, although it's less clear when it happens, but you know car expenses will happen, and so putting aside a certain amount each month and just letting that grow and then spending from that is nice. And living on last month's income is an important, nice thing that happens also. So commonly when you're budgeting, you project what your income is going to be. And if you've got a normal job, a normal sort of W-2 job, that can be easy. Sometimes though, I was self-employed for many years, you don't actually know what you're going to be making this month until the month happens. So much easier to take last month's income and say, well, I know what that was. That's what I will budget from this month. That's the amount of money I have to 2, 2. And then the next month, look back at last month's and so on. It does mean you need to accumulate a buffer, but you don't want to be living paycheck to paycheck anyway. Free for students, and you all have a Harvey Mudd account, so you're still students for a little while. My claim to best checking account is Charles Schwab. No minimum, no ATM fees. Not only does Schwab not charge ATM fees, if you go to, let's say, Chase Bank and it says it's going to be a $3 charge, I just happily say, fine, charge me whatever you want, because at the end of the month, Schwab gives it back to me. Okay, so they rebate me whatever it might be, so I don't care. Mobile deposits, which is fine, bill pay like everyone has. The interest rate, this is probably actually high now. This is probably, it's not negative yet, I guess I would say. Nice debit card with no foreign transaction fees, and two-factor authorization, right? Many places don't have two-factor authorization. I say that is really important. So either a hardware token, and by two-factor authorization, I don't mean an SMS, right? It's like, yeah, I mean either a hardware token or an authenticator app that's, you know, generating numbers. Okay. Best credit card. How many of you have credit cards? All right, majority of you. So this is the one I would recommend as a daily credit card use. Like, unless you want to get into travel hacking and that sort of stuff, like, you want a good credit card, this is it. 2% cash back every month. No categories. No only if I run a balance. No anything. Just 2%. Okay. There are foreign transaction fees. So you don't want to use this if you're overseas. And the only slight gotcha is they don't send you a check. They don't give you a credit on your statement. Instead, they actually deposit it into a brokerage account. So you have to have a Fidelity brokerage account. But once it's there, every month you can just transfer that out to your checking account and spend it. Insurance. Some insurance. So let's look at some of this. Life insurance. How many of you have had life insurance? Why? Your parents got it for you. Okay. So there's perhaps one reason to have life insurance now, and that is because if you can get life insurance that's guaranteed renewable, then even if you get sick or ill or start doing extreme sports, you know, that would otherwise make you uninsurable, you can still have it. But other than that, none of you need life insurance now because no one is, I assume, is counting on you if you die, right? That's really the reason for life insurance, is to have money for the people who count on you. So you're probably not in that situation. But if you are, you need life insurance. Your employer will probably give you $50,000 life insurance because IRS allows them to do that, and it's not a taxable benefit. Above $50,000 is. You probably don't want life insurance, though, through your employer, because you want life insurance to be maintained even if you leave employers and switch employers. So if you want life insurance, you probably want individual life insurance. Yeah. Or some other group like IEEE or ACM or something like that.
So in that case, if your employer is offering life insurance, would you ask to transfer those benefits to some other benefits, or would you just take that money and then have benefits?
You let them do their 50,000 standard thing.
And then what happens when you leave?
So these are just premiums they are paying on your behalf. And when you leave, you're no longer covered by that insurance. But if you die, then your estate gets $50,000.
So if they provide you then with more than 50,000, can you?
They're not going to. They'll provide the option,
Okay.
but they won't provide it to you because you get taxed on it.
You get taxed on it.
Above 50,000, you get taxed on that because it is a benefit provided to you. So. Disability insurance, very important, often provided by your employer, but this is you get sick and you can't work. Do you need disability insurance? Does it matter whether you have dependents? Well, yes, because you are still going to have expenses. And if you can't work, you need something to pay those expenses. And you're more likely to become disabled for some amount of time than you are to actually die. Well, Eventually, that's not quite true. In the limit, all of us will die. So disability is really important. Life insurance is important. But once you become financially independent, you don't need those anymore, right? Because your monthly expenses are paid for, or can be paid for from your passive income. Health insurance provided by your employer. Yes, we know about that. We'll come back to that as regard taxes. And umbrella insurance. You need umbrella insurance is, let me see if I have a picture on this. I don't have a picture, but basically what happens is you have your auto insurance. You have your homeowner's insurance or renters. And these cover specific things, right? Your autos, you're in your auto, something happens. Your homeowner's insurance or your renter's insurance covers specific things. A umbrella policy covers everything sort of outside of that. You libel someone and get sued. Umbrella insurance can deal with that. Let's see, what are some other things that can happen? You serve on a nonprofit board of directors, and you get it personally sued. Neither of these are going to cover it. Your umbrella insurance will cover it. Or you just get sued because you run over someone, right? A cardiac surgeon, right, who has a lot of years ahead of them but makes a lot of money, and your auto insurance limits run out. Umbrella insurance comes in to the rescue. So normally it's $1 million. You could do kind of increments of $1 million. And it's relatively cheap, like $400 a year maybe. It does require that you increase your limits for your auto insurance to kind of the maximum. But it's cheap insurance. And you may say, I don't have any assets. And so therefore, it's not a problem, right? You can't get blood from a turnip, I think is what they say, right? So, but the fact is, you have high future income potential, right? And so therefore, you don't want a judgment against you for $500,000, and then you go into your six-figure job, and they start taking half of it, right? That wouldn't be fun. So umbrella insurance is cheap insurance. How much do you have? It's hard to say. It doesn't really matter how much. So if you have $2 million, let's say you've done a bunch of saving, you're financially independent, you have $2 million, how much your umbrella be? Should it be $2 million? There's no real relationship between the two, right? Someone could still sue you for $100 million, use up your umbrella insurance, and then go after you. Practically, you want it enough so that this insurance company is fighting hard for you, providing you a very good legal defense, okay? If you have a minimum auto insurance policy, a lot of times they'll just settle, right? It's a lot less work to settle than to fight over a $30,000 claim. But if it's a $2 million claim and they've got $2 million on the line, they'll be out there fighting. Does that make sense?
How often do people get sued?
It depends. I would guess there are some of our presidents who have never sued or been sued, and there are others who have done a lot of suing and been sued, for example. It depends on how you operate your life. It's a low probability event with high consequences. So, cash reserves. My recommendation, keep 3 to 6 months of living expenses available. Okay? Where available doesn't actually mean in cash in a safe in your house, but readily turned into cash. CDs, money markets, savings accounts, I-bonds. So CDs and I-bonds, you may have to pay some penalty to get at them, but they're available. Not like a bond fund or a total stock market index fund or something like that. Because, if you've got, has happened in the last week or two, big gyrations, that money may not be there when you think it is. Okay? Or you really don't want to pull it out now. It's like the market just took a big dive. Now is not when I want to pull money out of the market. So have that. I recommend you do not rely on credit cards or HELOCs, right? Credit cards, so you have a lot of potential credit you can get from a credit card, right? You can get cash from credit cards. I actually do travel hacking, so I've got a bunch of credit cards with my wife, and it is insane, right? The credit limits that we have, but you don't want to count on it. And a home equity line of credit is basically like a mortgage where you don't take the money yet, right? And you just get given kind of a checkbook, and you can write checks and withdraw money, and all of a sudden you're now owing the bank that much money. In 2007, 2008, credit cards were chopped off. Credit companies said, I am going to cancel that credit card. HELOCs were closed. And so people who relied on this were in trouble because they then did not have that as their way to get cash. Okay. So this will weather a lot of potential problems, having that.
What's a CD?
CD is a certificate of deposit. That's basically you go to bank and you say, I'll give you this money. You can hold on to it for 2 years or 1 year, whatever the term of the CD is. And they will give you a higher rate than if you've got some demand deposit where you can pull it out anytime. But normally, if you have a 2-year CD, for example, if you want it back early, they will give it to you, but they will either reduce the rate or charge you some sort of a penalty. But you can get it.
So are any of those liquid? Like maybe money markets?
Money market and savings accounts are savings accounts especially. Savings accounts are, checking accounts are completely liquid. And even that's not 100% true. By law, savings accounts, they can hold your money for up to 30 days from when you request it. Basically, that doesn't happen and hasn't happened. Money markets, there was a case in 2007, 2008 where actually money markets lost. There was a money market that lost its value, and that was considered very surprising and unheard of, and I think they got bailed out. Okay. We talked about housing a little bit. We talked about transportation a little bit. Taxes is a big thing, right? Taxes, how much are you going to be paying in taxes? Who's going to be in California working next year? Yeah? Like Bay Area or something? Okay. So 6-figure maybe, let's just say. So your rates are going to be, by the way, if it was 4-figure, just go renegotiate, right? Because you're getting taken advantage of. But so your rates are probably going to be federal between 20 and 30%, state up to 10%. So you've got like 40%, 30 to 40% that you're going to be paying, which is a lot. That's like your biggest expense probably. But since it gets taken out of your paycheck, you hardly notice it, which is why they do that. Used to be, before World War II, your income taxes were due at the end of the year. You had to write a big check. Okay? And it's a lot, people don't like that as much, and they object more to taxes if that happens. So, if you're going to be doing saving, tax deferred is a good thing. How many of you know about IRAs? And by the way, if you're like not from the US, then this is like not relevant, or you're not going to be in the US. But if you're in the US and the US tax system, then this is relevant. So IRA is an individual retirement account. You can put money into that. However, so the government provides for one kind of an IRA, a traditional IRA, you put in, let's say, $5,000. You get to reduce your taxable income by $5,000. So you don't have to pay taxes on that $5,000. But that phases out depending on your income. And you all will probably be, unless you're grad students, going to be at a level where that gets phased out. Yeah.
So something that kind of confused me about IRAs is that I thought you would just not be paying taxes on it. But now I'm getting the sense that you either pay taxes on it when you get it again in retirement, or...
Yeah, we have some pictures on this in just a moment.
Okay.
So yeah, there is only one special type of investment where you can never pay taxes. Okay? But if you have a traditional IRA, you pay taxes you don't pay taxes on the way in, but later on down the road when you take it out, you pay taxes. There's another kind where you pay taxes on the way in, and later down the road when you take it out, you don't have to pay any taxes.
When you pay taxes during retirement, is your bracket
If you have a crappy retirement and low income, then your plus side is you don't have to pay much tax on your
Right. But if
retirement.
we get like jobs in the tech industry, then chances are we're gonna have like high pensions and benefits and everything.
So the pensions, no one in the tech industry has pensions, right? That's like the old-fashioned way things were done. You're going to have your 401k and your retirement assets that you'll be pulling money from. And hopefully you'll have enough where you're still going to be paying high taxes there too.
401ks pay taxes on the way out?
It depends. So there are Roth. When we say the word Roth, it was actually like a congressman who sponsored a bill. But anyway, Roth is a special case. Pay taxes now, don't pay later, which the government kind of likes because they're very short-sighted and they always want their money now. Okay. So you probably will make too much money to either contribute to a traditional IRA and get to deduct, or to contribute to a Roth IRA where you pay taxes now and don't pay taxes later. But through the vagaries of the system, you can effectively get a Roth IRA no matter what your income limit, because there's no income limit on conversions. So just look up backdoor Roth IRA, okay? You can put in $6,000. I gave this talk last in December, so that number may have gone up for 2020. Still 6,000, okay. So you can put $6,000 in, that's great. If you end up married, your spouse could do that too. 401k, okay, so 401k is a great thing. It basically takes the place of pensions, right? Pensions are where the company just says after you retire, after 30 years, and you worked for so many, so you worked here for 30 years, I will give you 70% of your final salary. Okay, people who work for the state, like my wife works for Cal Poly, and that's what she has, that kind of a thing. So you can put in up to $19,000, $19.5 thousand yourself into a 401k and you don't pay taxes. All right? The company matches often. Okay? So often they will provide some match. For tech companies, it's often going to be like 50%. So you put in your $19,500 and they will put in $9,750. But there's actually, so 19 plus 9750 is like around 20,000. There's 30,000, 37,000 kind of left over. Okay? Here's what the company could do. You could put in 19,000 and they could put in 1950, 39,000. Okay, they could choose to like put as much as that in if they wanted. They don't do that though, but they could. They couldn't put in 50,000 and you put in 19,000 because the tax code says you can't just put in unlimited amounts in this special tax deferred account. Okay? So the question is, we got this sort of unused amount. We got the 19,000, we got the company match. What about the remainder? Basically, there is, where's my star? Yeah. There's a backdoor, just like the backdoor Roth IRA. It's called a backdoor. I think that what they call it is a backdoor mega Roth. Okay? So, I was working at Google. Google, for setting up their benefits, they get like volunteers from the company to help them with that. And so they make sure that they have like the best settings on everything, right? So your 401k needs to be able to support this for this to work. Google's did happen to, not just happen to. Engineers made sure that it supports this. So you can contribute your $19,500 and then the company matches that with $9,750, and then you can put an additional whatever I just said that was, $37,000 in. Okay? You have to go through this sort of contortion of first you contribute it and then you convert it. It's like the backdoor Roth IRA. Anyway, you can get the money in. If you're at a 50% savings rate, you have that much money to put in. $57,000 plus $6,000, plus I'll talk about the health savings account too. But that gives you $66,000 that you can put away either without paying taxes on it now, or in the case of the Roth, paying taxes on it now but never having to pay taxes on it in the future. Okay, so tax advantaged. Yeah.
So would this be something like the 401k that you would want to negotiate with your employer or not?
They have, the 401k has to cover all employees equally, so there's no negotiation you can do. What you could do, for instance, if you went to a startup or smaller company, is you could say, our 401k sucks, can we get a better 401k that has these options? Okay, so here's the pictures we got. So let's look at a regular old IRA, traditional IRA. You don't pay when you put the money in. That is, you don't have to pay taxes on it. You have $1,000, you put $1,000 in, no taxes due. Okay? So it just, you earned $100,000 that year, it's as if you earned 99. You do have to pay when you take it out. A Roth is reversed. You have to pay before you put it in. So you earned $100,000, you're going to have to pay taxes on $100,000. And then you take $1,000, put it in, but when you take it out, you don't have to pay. A post-tax IRA is kind of a weird, stupid thing, right? Where you pay now, and then you also pay on the way out, except for the part you contributed to begin with. It's like they don't want you to double pay. But you put $1,000 in, you pay taxes on that $1,000. When you take that $1,000 out that you already paid taxes on, you don't have to pay more. But any earnings you have to pay on. The advantage is it was building up tax-free, right? So as sort of inside this bubble, inside here, as you are, let's say, day trading stocks, you're not paying taxes as you go. You're only paying taxes at the very end. And that actually can be quite useful. Yeah.
So for the Roth IRAs and 401ks, those, if you're doing like day trading or like frequent trading, then you get taxed on like the capital gains every time you do a transaction? Or?
Within any of these boxes, anytime you do transactions, there's no taxes due. It's just at the very end when you're withdrawing money, you have to pay taxes. This is unlike, let's say, a non-tax advantaged account. You just have a regular brokerage account and you go in and doing day trading, you're going to have to be paying taxes on every transaction that happens. Right? Every time you sell, you have to pay right then. Here, it doesn't matter when you sell, it matters when you actually withdraw the money. Okay? Yeah.
How much are the taxes you take out?
It depends your tax rate when you take it out. It is what is called ordinary income tax rate. So it's as if you earned it, as if you had salary. It's that rate that you'll be paying.
So federal and state.
Federal and state. Yep. Although what you can do is don't pay taxes now, including don't pay California taxes. And then when you withdraw it, have moved. So you're no longer in California. So you never have to pay the state income tax. Okay? And California tried to like go after people and say, but you earned that here, and they lost, thank goodness.
How much is the limit putting into an IRA each year?
It's the IRA is $6,000. 401k is a total of $57,000. Oh, sorry. And this is the unicorn, right? HSA, health savings account, only works if you have a special high deductible health plan. So you can make contributions and you don't pay taxes. Any money you pull out for medical expenses, you don't pay taxes. So you never pay taxes.
But you can sell your,
What's that?
if you don't spend it, you can write off.
No. If you don't spend it, it grows and grows and grows and grows.
So you can only be used for medical expenses.
Not quite true. So once you become 65, it can be used for anything. But if it's not medical expenses, you have to pay tax on it. Okay?
But it's okay, any single medical expense is going to use up all that money.
No, 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 no. So here's the deal.
Keep track of your receipts, or you could use this.
Here's the HSA. This is the best retirement account there is. Okay? You put your money in. You have a medical expense. You do not pay it from here because this is a lovely, lovely, lovely account. Because as it grows and grows, right, you don't have to pay any taxes on the increase. So you take your $2,000 orthodontist bill or whatever it is, and you pay it out of pocket. But you carefully save your receipt. Okay? And then, years on down the road, that sucker has grown. And you now say, oh wait, I want to pay this $2,000. Tax-free. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. You don't, there's no requirement that it be a current medical expense.
Really?
Okay?
Wait, so does it mean, like, the HSA doesn't expire in your?
HSA doesn't expire. No, this is not a flexible spending account, which is a totally different thing. Flexible spending account is a use it or lose it. This is your personal account, okay, that you can invest and do all sorts of things in. Just don't make the mistake of spending from it. Save your receipts and pay them later once this has grown. Okay?
And do you manage these accounts yourself, or you give that to like a broker?
I manage them myself. If you didn't want to manage it yourself, my suggestion would be just use some total stock market index, simple, low cost. I think for the most part, sort of financial advisors can be very useful in talking you down from selling your stuff when the market is down. So if you need that, they're good. But if you can force yourself to stick with it, even during bad times, then you don't need them.
How do you feel right now about that?
I liked it more when it's up, because I just like it when it's up. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. Okay. So you got all this money. You were saving $57,000 a year in your 401k. You were saving $6,000 a year in your IRA. You were saving $3,500 or whatever it was in your HSA. And you're saving 50% of your income. And now, what did we say? 15 years from now, you're financially independent? Is that right? Except it's stuck in one of these retirement accounts, and you are not 59 and a half. What do you do? Well, you could just keep working to your 59 and a half, but what was the point of all this? So, first off, if you leave a company, you can roll over your 401k into an IRA. Usually they won't let you leave it there. If you go to a new company, you can roll it over to their 401k. Whatever you do, don't cash it out. Right? People do that. But don't do that, because then you're going to have to pay not only the taxes on it, but also 10% penalty because you're not 59 and a half. So if you have an IRA, you can pull money out anytime you want if you pay taxes and a 10% penalty. Okay? There's no way you're going to take it out without taxes. If it's a Roth, I will back that up. If it's a Roth, any of your contributions, you can pull it any day you want. Pay no taxes, pay no penalty. So having your savings in a Roth is not a bad idea. If you wanted to have your 3 to 6 months living expenses, if some of that in a Roth, you could always take it if you need it, if you don't have any other. But in any case, there are 3 exceptions. If you have medical expenses greater than 10% of your income, you can pull out of a Roth and not pay it. Pull out of your IRA and not pay a 10% penalty. That's a lot of medical expenses, but that happens. College expenses, even if you paid them from a 529, you can still take money out if you want. 529 is like a, what are they called? It's a college savings plan. First-time homebuyer. Sounds good. You all will probably be first-time homebuyers, except not more than $10,000 for your entire lifetime. So make sure to go to a low cost of living place where $10,000 is useful. Okay? But there are other possibilities, substantially equal periodic payments. That is, if you amortize your IRA over your lifetime. Okay? You go to their tables, it says, I'm 35, I'm projected to live 40 years. Take your balance, take 40 years, take the current interest rates that the feds publish, and come up with an annual payment. If you start just taking that out, you pay no 10%. Still have to pay your income tax. Okay? So that's kind of retiring on or how you can actually get at an annual income from your IRA. And then there's a conversion thing too, which I should mention. That the disadvantage of this one is once you start, you have to keep going at least 5 years and keep going until you're 59 and a half. And if you stop anytime before that, the entire thing is negated, and you have to pay taxes on everything you took out all the way. So it kind of is a commitment. Conversion to a Roth IRA, I'm going to ignore this in a second. Here's what you do. You have your IRA that is not a Roth IRA. You can always convert money from your non-Roth to your Roth. And you got to pay taxes on it, right? So you have $5,000 in your Roth IRA. Sorry, $5,000 in your regular IRA. You can move it into a Roth IRA and then pay taxes for that. Okay. Let's say you do that for 5 years. You take some amount, X amount, out of here, pay taxes separately, put it into Roth. Do another amount, another amount, another amount. After 5 years, your converted money is kind of considered seasoned. And once it's seasoned, you can remove it from your Roth IRA without paying taxes. Yeah.
Do you know if these conversions count for the contribution?
They don't count for the contribution, so you could still contribute if you wanted. Although what we're trying to do here is figure out a way to get money out, right? That's our goal. But you could. So what happens in year 6? Let's see what happens. So you are now converting some more money, which will be used in year 11. You'll be able to get back into year 11. So the amount you put in year 1, you can take out in year 6 with no taxes. So basically what you're doing is getting this amount out in year 6, and you're having to pay taxes on this amount. This could all be the same, right? This could be $50,000 every one of these years, right? Pay whatever your taxes are on $50,000, pay whatever your taxes are on $50,000, get $50,000, pay taxes on $50,000, get $50,000. So you've now got this ladder that's working where it's always sort of 5 years either ahead or behind. Kind of like a N step where N is 5. Okay? And this is total flexibility because you can change you can decide any year to withdraw or not to withdraw, to convert or not to convert. All right. Let us look at this. So I ran this on TurboTax last year. Let's say you're married. You're in the 12% tax bracket, okay? So that's up to $77,000. In that tax bracket, any capital gains, that is anything you bought and sold at least a year later, you don't owe any tax on that gain, okay? And that's not 100% true. It depends how much that gain is, okay? But marginally, if any extra dollar you get in capital gain, you don't owe any tax on.
Any kind of capital? Or just like capital in the sense of like stocks? Or
Capital gain would be like buying a stock and selling it a year later.
Okay.
Buying a house, selling it a year later, you know, a rental property.
Okay. What about buying like a car?
Dividends as well. No, not, I guess if you were like buying a car and as a business kind of and selling it for more, then yeah. So 0%. So let's look at what we have. Let's say we have, and what I want to show you is the tax system penalizes people who work for a living. Okay? So here's what you got. You got $25,000 in dividends. That is, you have Apple stock, let's say, that's generating $25,000. You have $52,000 in capital gains. You have your Tesla stock that you bought when it was low and you sell and you now earn $52,000 on that. And you do a IRA conversion, let's say, or withdrawal, either one. So either you withdraw and pay the taxes or you convert and pay the taxes. Let's say we're converting. $101,000 income, right? Really, let's look at it. $50,000, $70,000, $80,000 that you can spend and $24,000 that you converted so that you are paying taxes on it now, but since you're in the 0% tax bracket, you're paying nothing. So this is that previous slide where in year 1, you converted 24,000. 5 years from now, you'll be able to take that $24,000 out, and how much tax did you ever pay on it? Nothing. Because you didn't pay when you first put it in. You didn't pay this year when you're converting because your income was low enough. And you didn't pay when you take it out because it was already in a Roth. Pretty cool. Now, if you had earned income of $80,000, you'd be in the 12% tax bracket, right? Which means any marginal dollar you make, you're paying 12%. So you would have taxes of $5,000 to $10,000, somewhere in there. Does that make sense? It's just worth it realizing, right? This living on passive income, from a tax point of view, can be advantageous.
All the politicians know about this. They're okay with back then.
Well, right. So let's look, for instance, the rich people aren't making W-2 income, right? They're making normal, capital gains and dividend income is where a lot of it is. So there's an incentive for that.
But how many of those rich people are there?
I don't know. The question is, how much money do they have to give to campaign contributions? So it's not the total number of them. The HSA. You contribute your max. You pay your money out of pocket. You save your receipts. You let it grow. 27 years. Why 27 years? Because we had some number of doublings. 3 doublings. Yeah, save your receipts. That's really important. And then withdraw it all tax-free. Whenever you want. And I, by the way, when I first read about this, was just not convinced until I actually went through the scenario of what happens if I withdraw the money, all right, from here. What happens instead if I pay it out? And I just looked, and at the end, yep, it's better.
Wait, why do you save your receipts again?
The reason you want to save your receipts is because when you withdraw the money here, withdraw money that you have receipts for. So all your saved receipts, because you can only withdraw it tax-free if you're using it for medical expenses. So you have all your saved medical expenses, and that's what you withdraw.
So 2 things. One, what's the reason for federal savings account? Or
The health savings account?
Yeah. Or the version of this that's easier to use, there's also this. It's just worse.
It's just a different thing.
Okay.
So
And then the second thing is that each of these accounts, there is the possibility of losing money on them if it's misinvested, or
anytime you have money, if it's misinvested, you can lose money.
okay.
So you could always invest this in certificate of deposit, right? That isn't going to lose money, or a T-bill or something like that. The problem is it's not going to earn much money. So one has this risk-reward to do.
When you have an FSA and an HSA, is it better to use the FSA money as much as you can before using the
So an FSA is a flexible spending account. So I'll give you an example. So this year I set up $2,700, right? $200-something a month. It gets taken out of your paycheck, and then you have $2,700 for the year. And if you don't use it by the end of the year, and they get a little grace period they could do, I think a couple months, then it's gone.
So
Okay.
you set aside the money and then it disappears.
You set aside the money, but if you don't use it, it disappears. So you want to kind of make sure you have to use it.
If you have medical expenses.
Yep. So I got a $2,700 check the other day because I had expenses. You can hack FSAs too, by the way. So if you're going to leave a company, right, let's say, so I left Google in January. So I set up an FSA for the year I was going to leave of a maximum amount. And then in January, I spent it all. Okay? So for example, well, here's an example, let's say. So I told you, in fact, right now I got a $2,700 check. This is March, right? I haven't put aside my $275 a month yet. It doesn't matter. So The bad side is if you don't use it, you lose it. The good side is you can use it before you save it.
Oh, so you're saying that you paid through the $275,
And I got
and then you
2,700.
paid, and so you didn't pay any more money.
Yep.
But because you had medical expenses,
Yep.
you could use it.
Yep.
But of course, this only works if you have medical expenses.
Yeah, you got to have medical expenses. So,
So
yeah,
if
if necessary, you can, you know,
Are you still paying the 275 at the year?
yes. Yeah. The problem now is I'm still employed. Right. Actually, it was through my wife, and she's still employed. But yeah. So in my case, like I got glasses and a couple pairs of glasses.
At least from there.
Yeah. Okay, vested stock. How many people are working for a company that gives you stock? One, a couple. If you don't know, if it's not part of your offer letter, then you don't, because they'll normally say this number of stock. Okay, so here's the deal. You get a month, and your stock will vest over time. So commonly it'll be 4 years. So like a year from when you start working, that 13th month, you might get some stock vested. Okay? Which means it's yours now. And you could sell it if you wanted. So let's say you have a paycheck in 1 month and some vested stock in that same month. As far as the IRS is concerned, you got this much. The total is what was given to you, and the total is what you're going to need to pay taxes on. Right? And in fact, it's just as if you'd gotten the total amount in cash and you chose to buy Y dollars of your company stock. Right? Many people view this stock that is given to them as like stock that they hold on to. And some people I even talk to view it as kind of funny money. Like that's separate from my real calculation of how much money I have. This is some special thing. Okay? It's not. Money is fungible, right? Is Y the exact amount of company stock that you want to own? Unlikely. You know, if you just sat down and said, how much of my total, let's say, salary this month do I want to invest in my company stock? Would it happen to be Y? Very unlikely. Could be more, although I'd say it shouldn't. Could be less. You might even say, I don't want to hold on to my company stock because I want some diversification, right? Enron was a good example where people had all this money in their stock, and when the company imploded, like they lost not only their job, but they also lost all that money. So treat it as, in fact, just sell it. Okay? Just sell your stock, and if you really want to buy the stock, turn around and buy the stock. And by the way, deciding not to sell the stock is the same as actively deciding to buy it. All right? That is a hard thing to keep in mind. But choosing not to sell is really the same thing as buying, given that there are no transaction costs. So just sell it. You might say, well, gee, but the stock goes up, right? And that's true. But you're already getting more stock in the future as you're vesting. So next month or next quarter, you're going to get more stock. And if the price has gone up since then, you're sharing in the appreciation. So you're already committed there. So just sell it. And usually they have an auto sell program. I have a couple resources. And that is it for financial. There's a Optimize Your Engineering Life too, which I'm going to make you guys be wait, I closed that, but it's still alive.
It's optimizing your life. Is this an optimal mouse selection?
Yeah, I don't know.
What is the optimal mouse selection?
All right, hold on a second. You know, because I've told you, if you want to select a line of text,
Right.
what do you do?
You double click it or triple
You triple click it, right? If you want a line of text, you triple click. And if you want to take more than one line of text, you triple click and extend, and it goes line by line by line. Okay?
for what program?
Any program.
I just
In Vim, you press like V and it's
Vim is a different story. We're talking mouse.
So the goal is to make sure that you can click fast, or
The goal is to make it ergonomic too.
is this not ergonomic? I think
You have a limited number of clicks in your life. Use them wisely.